She grabbed my sister's blanket and said, "You don't need this. Give it to me." The plane hadn't even taken off yet. My little sister Aisha was sitting by the window, hugging that light blue blanket like it was gold. She always carried it when she felt nervous. Flying scared her. She tried to be brave, but her fingers were shaking. The woman across the aisle leaned over and pulled the blanket from her lap like it belonged to her. I froze for a second. "Excuse me," I said. The woman didn't even look at me properly. Perfect hair. Big sunglasses. Loud voice. "My son is cold. She's old enough to handle it. Don't be dramatic." Her son looked about 10. He was playing on an iPad and didn't look cold at all. Aisha's lips started trembling. "It's mine," she whispered. The woman rolled her eyes. "You people always make a scene over nothing. You people." I felt heat rise in my chest. "This blanket belongs to my sister," I said slowly. "Please give it back." She smiled like she had already won. "This is first-class comfort. If you can't afford extra, don't complain." We weren't even in first class. It was regular economy. Passengers started watching. Aisha reached forward to take it back, but the woman pulled it away and wrapped it around her own shoulders dramatically. "Oh, relax. It's just a blanket." "No, it wasn't. That blanket belonged to our mom. She gave it to Aisha before she passed away last year. It still had the small stitch she made in the corner." The woman had no idea. I stood up. "Give it back." She suddenly raised her voice. "Flight attendant, this man is harassing me." Gasps around us. Harassing? I hadn't even touched her. The flight attendant started walking toward us. Tall, calm, serious face. Her name tag read Ms. Carter. The woman pointed at me. "He's threatening me over a blanket. I feel unsafe." Unsafe? My sister was literally shaking. Ms. Carter looked at me first. Not angry, just observing. "Sir, what's going on?" Before I could answer, the woman jumped in. His sister tried to grab my property. I told them to stop touching my things. "Property?" Aisha's eyes filled with tears. "It's mine." The woman laughed softly. "See? Drama." Miss Carter didn't speak right away. She turned to Aisha. "Sweetheart, is that your blanket?" Aisha nodded. The woman snapped. "Of course she say yes." I reached into my backpack calmly. The woman smirked. "Oh great, now he's reaching for something." I pulled out my phone. "Before you say anything else," I said quietly, "I think you should watch this." The woman's smile faded just a little. Miss Carter looked curious. "Watch what?" I tapped the screen and turned it toward her. It was security footage from the boarding gate. Clear video. The woman bending down, grabbing the blanket from Aisha's bag while we were placing luggage overhead. She thought no one saw her. The color drained from her face. "That's edited," she said quickly. "It's airport security footage," I replied. "I requested it 5 minutes ago." That part wasn't fully true. But she didn't know that. Passengers leaned forward. Miss Carter's expression changed. Calm, but cold. "Ma'am," she said slowly, "did you remove this item from their belongings?" The woman started talking fast. "It was hanging out. I assumed it was free airline supply. It has my mom's name stitched on it," Aisha said softly. Miss Carter gently held the corner of the blanket. There it was. Fatima, hand-stitched. The woman's hands started shaking slightly now. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You're embarrassing me in front of everyone." "You did that yourself," someone behind us muttered. Miss Carter straightened her posture. "Ma'am, stealing from another passenger is a serious matter." "It's not stealing," she yelled. Now people were recording. The plane was still at the gate. And then she made a mistake. She pointed at me and said loudly, "People like you always try to scam decent families." Silence. Miss Carter's face hardened. "People like him," she repeated. The woman realized too late what she had said. I stayed quiet, because this wasn't just about a blanket anymore. Miss Carter turned to me again. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" I handed it to her. She looked at it carefully. Then she looked at the woman's ticket, and something shifted in her eyes. The woman crossed her arms. "What now?" Miss Carter took a slow breath. "Ma'am," she said calmly, "you are not assigned to this route." The woman blinked. "Excuse me? Your seat is to C? This is one for A." The woman's son finally looked up from his iPad. The cabin filled with whispers. "You switched seats without permission," Ms. Carter continued. "You removed property from another passenger, and you made a false harassment claim." The woman stood up abruptly. "I demand to speak to the captain." "You will," Ms. Carter replied evenly. But not in this seat. Aisha held my hand tightly. The woman leaned close to me and whispered angrily, "You have no idea who you're messing with." I met her eyes calmly. "Oh," I said quietly, "I think I do." Because what she didn't know was that this flight wasn't random for us, and Ms. Carter wasn't just a flight attendant to my family. The woman had just picked the wrong flight and the wrong sister to mess with, and we hadn't even left the ground yet. The woman thought she could still win. She lifted her chin and said loudly, "This is discrimination. I want airport security right now." Ms. Carter didn't argue. She simply picked up the cabin phone near the front and spoke quietly. Her voice was calm, too calm. The woman smirked at me. "You think showing some fake video makes you powerful?" I didn't answer. Aisha was holding the blanket again, pressing it against her chest like it might disappear. Passengers were whispering. Phones were still recording. 2 airport officers stepped onto the plane a few minutes later. Not rushing, just steady. The woman immediately switched her tone. Soft, victim mode. "Thank God you're here. This man has been threatening me since boarding." One of the officers looked at me. "Sir?" Before I could speak, Ms. Carter stepped forward. "I witnessed the situation," she said firmly. "This passenger took property from a minor and made a false accusation." The woman's smile cracked. "That's not true," she snapped. "She's covering for them." The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, we also have gate footage." Now her face changed completely. "You, what?" The officer nodded. "Airport cameras recorded you removing the blanket from the child's bag." Silence hit like a wall. Passengers gasped. The woman tried one last move. "It was a misunderstanding. I thought it was complimentary." The officer looked at the stitched name again. With a personal name sewn into it, her mouth opened, then closed. Aisha looked at me with wide eyes. She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough. The officer continued, "And you were seated in the wrong row." The woman's son whispered, "Mom, let's just go." She ignored him. "I have status with this airline," she said sharply. "You can't treat me like this." Ms. Carter didn't even blink. "Status doesn't override behavior." That line made someone clap quietly in the back. The officer gestured toward the aisle. "Ma'am, please gather your belongings." She didn't move. I said. His voice lowered. "Now." She grabbed her purse angrily. As she walked past us, she leaned toward Aisha and whispered, "Crybaby." That was it. I stood up fast. "Don't speak to her again." The officer immediately stepped between us. "Sir, stay seated." I took a breath. I didn't want this to turn into something else. But then something unexpected happened. Ms. Carter turned to the officers and said quietly, "There's one more thing." The woman froze mid-step. "What now?" she snapped. Ms. Carter held up a small gold bracelet. It was in her hand. My stomach dropped. "That was found under your seat during boarding," she said calmly. "Belongs to this family as well." Aisha gasped. "That's mine." The bracelet. "Our mom gave that to her on her last birthday." The woman shook her head wildly. "I've never seen that before." Miss Carter looked directly at the officers. "It was placed in her purse." A passenger behind her saw it. Now the entire cabin went dead silent. The officer's tone changed. "Ma'am, is there anything else in your bag that doesn't belong to you?" Her confidence shattered. She started breathing fast. "This is insane. This is insane." The officer gently, but firmly took her purse. She tried to pull it back. "Wrong move." "Ma'am," he said, now serious, "do not resist." Passengers were fully recording now. The purse was opened. Inside, 2 wallets, neither of them hers. Gasps filled the cabin. The woman looked like she might faint. I was going to return them," she stammered. Miss Carter's voice was steady. After landing, the officer turned to her son. "Young man, please step aside." Tears started running down his face. "Mom, why do you always do this?" That sentence hit harder than anything. "Why do you always do this?" So this wasn't her first time. The officer looked at the second officer and nodded. "Ma'am, you are being removed from this aircraft." "For what?" she screamed. "For theft, false reporting, and interfering with the flight crew." Her entire image of power collapsed in seconds. As they escorted her down the aisle, people moved their legs out of the way like she was invisible. No more sunglasses confidence. No more fake authority. Just panic. But before she stepped off the plane, she turned back and pointed at me. "This isn't over," she hissed. I held her stare. It was over, I said calmly. The moment you touched my sister. The doors closed behind her. Silence, then soft clapping. Aisha looked up at me. Are we in trouble? I smiled gently. No, not today. Miss Carter knelt beside Aisha. You did nothing wrong. Aisha whispered. Thank you. Miss Carter's eyes softened for a second, like she knew us deeper than just passengers. And then she said something strange. I promised your mother I would always look out for you. My heart skipped. The plane hadn't even left the gate, and now the real story was about to begin. My chest tightened the moment Miss Carter said that. I promised your mother I would always look out for you. Aisha looked confused. You knew my mom? Miss Carter stood up slowly, glancing at the other passengers as if deciding how much to say. The cabin was still buzzing from what had just happened, but something deeper had just entered the room. Yes, she said softly. I did. I swallowed. How? She gave a small smile. Not dramatic, not emotional, just real. Your mom saved my life. The words didn't register at first. Aisha blinked. Saved your life? Miss Carter nodded. 3 years ago. Different flight, different city. I was working the late shift. Your mom was a passenger. My mind started racing. Mom never told us much about her work trips. She always kept it simple. She wasn't just traveling, Miss Carter continued quietly. She was consulting. Consulting? Aisha squeezed my arm. Consulting for what? Miss Carter looked at me now, like she knew I was old enough to understand. Security risk analysis. I felt the air shift around us. Mom worked in IT. That's what we always thought. She helped federal agencies identify flight security weaknesses, Miss Carter said carefully. She was one of the best. Aisha's mouth dropped open. No way. I tried to remember all those nights she stayed up late on her laptop, all those calls she took outside. She detected a passenger acting strange on my flight, Miss Carter went on. Everyone thought he was just nervous. Your mom didn't. What happened? I asked. He had concealed components. Not a full device, but enough to cause serious damage. She alerted the crew quietly. We handled it before takeoff. The cabin suddenly felt smaller. You're saying? I whispered. Yes, she said firmly. Your mother prevented a disaster. Aisha's eyes filled with tears, but this time not from fear. She never told us, she said. She couldn't, Ms. Carter replied. It was classified. Classified. My stomach dropped. Mom died in what they called a car accident. Simple, quick, unfortunate. But now, nothing felt simple. I looked at Ms. Carter carefully. Why are you telling us this now? She hesitated. Because the woman, who was just removed from this plane, isn't just a random thief. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? I asked. Ms. Carter lowered her voice. She's been flagged before. Minor thefts, identity confusion cases. Always released. Always protected. Protected? Aisha looked scared again. Protected by who? That, Ms. Carter said quietly, is what your mom was investigating before she died. Everything inside me, and still. You're saying her accident. I'm saying, she interrupted gently, that your mother believed someone was testing airport systems through small incidents, petty crimes, seat swaps, false claims, stolen IDs. My mind flashed back to the 2 wallets found in that woman's purse. And she thought it wasn't random. I asked. Miss Carter shook her head. She believed it was rehearsal. The engines outside began to hum lightly. We were still at the gate, but preparations had started. Aisha looked at me. Rehearsal for what? Before Miss Carter could answer, one of the airport officers stepped back onto the plane. Ma'am, he said to Miss Carter quietly, we need a word. She nodded and walked a few steps away with him. I watched their faces closely. Serious. Too serious. When she came back, her expression had changed. They're not arresting her, she said. What? I stood up slightly. She's being detained for questioning, but someone has already called in. Called in? Aisha repeated. Miss Carter nodded. A lawyer. Very fast response. Very high level. Of course. The woman's threat echoed in my head. You have no idea who you're messing with. I sat back down slowly. Aisha whispered. Is she dangerous? I didn't know what to say. Miss Carter looked at both of us carefully. There's something else, she said. My heart felt like it was beating in my ears. Your mother left something with me. That sentence changed everything. What? I asked. She told me. If anything ever happened to her, and if I ever saw you two again, I should give it to you. The plane's door closed fully now. The cabin lights dimmed slightly. Aisha grabbed my hand tightly. "What is it?" she whispered. Miss Carter reached into the small compartment near her jump seat. She pulled out a slim brown envelope, sealed. My name written on it, in Mom's handwriting. My throat closed. "I kept it safe," Miss Carter said quietly. "I didn't think I'd ever see you." I stared at it like it might disappear. Passengers around us were pretending not to listen, but everyone was. "Open it," Aisha whispered. My hands were shaking as I broke the seal. Inside, a small flash drive, and a folded letter. I unfolded the letter first. It was short. "If you're reading this, something didn't add up. Trust your instincts. The small ones always lead to the big ones. Don't let fear silence you. And remember, you are stronger than they think. Love you always. Mom." Aisha started crying softly, but I wasn't crying. I was thinking. Small ones lead to big ones. Seat swaps, blanket theft, wallets, false accusations, testing reactions, testing systems. The flash drive felt heavy in my palm. "What's on it?" Aisha asked. Miss Carter shook her head. "I never opened it. She told me not to." The plane began pushing back from the gate. Too late to step off now. A strange calm settled over me. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. The screen blinked. One folder, labeled Pattern. I clicked it. Files opened. Photos, incident reports, names, dates, different airports, different minor crimes. The one name appeared again and again. The woman from this plane. Different hairstyle, different glasses, same face, under different names. Aisha gasped. "That's her." "Yes, but in these files, she wasn't just stealing, she was gaining access. Restricted lounges, crew-only doors, security badge scans, fake medical emergencies. Every time she was caught, she was released quietly. No charges stuck, no public record. She's not just entitled," I whispered. "She's connected," Miss Carter said quietly. My heart pounded. One more file caught my final note. I opened it. A short video began playing. Mom's face filled the screen. She looked tired, but focused. "If this is being watched," she said calmly, "then I was right." Aisha covered her mouth. "There's a network testing civilian access points through low-level operatives. They look like everyday troublemakers, Karens, loud, entitled, hard to confront without backlash." She paused. "They rely on chaos, on social hesitation, on people not wanting to escalate." The cabin felt silent even though engines roar. I traced funding to a shell organization using airport service contracts. "It's bigger than petty theft." My blood ran cold. "If something happens to me," Mom continued, "it won't be random." The video cut. Aisha was crying openly now. "This is crazy," she whispered. Miss Carter looked straight ahead, processing. "And now she just happened to board this flight?" I asked. Miss Carter's jaw tightened. "This route," she said slowly, "is transporting something important today." I looked at her sharply. "What?" She hesitated. Then she made a choice. "Two federal witnesses are on board, under discreet transfer." Everything clicked into place. Seat switching, proximity, false drama, distraction. "She wasn't stealing a blanket," I said quietly. "She was positioning herself," Miss Carter replied. A cold realization spread through me. "And we ruined her cover." "Yes, we had." Aisha looked terrified. "Are we in danger?" I closed the laptop slowly. "If she was just testing access again," I said carefully. "She won't act now." "But if she wasn't alone," Miss Carter added. The plane lifted off the ground. My heart felt heavy, but focused. Mom didn't leave this for us to panic. She left it for a reason. A sudden announcement came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may experience minor turbulence shortly." But Miss Carter's eyes told me that wasn't about weather. It was about awareness. A man to rows behind us stood up suddenly. "Sir, please remain seated," another crew member called. He smiled casually, just stretching. I watched him carefully. Too calm, too relaxed. Aisha whispered, "Do you think?" "I don't know yet," I said. But I remembered Mom's words. The small ones lead to the big ones. And the small one had just been removed from the plane. But what if she wasn't the only one? Miss Carter discreetly moved down the aisle, not panicked, observing. I opened the files again. One more detail stood out. Each incident happened before a high-value flight transfer. Each time, Chaos was used to test crew response time. And today, we had just changed the script. We didn't hesitate. We didn't back down. We exposed her immediately. Which meant, if someone else was counting on that distraction, they were now out of sync. The man behind us sat back down slowly. His eyes met mine for a split second. And in that second, I knew this wasn't over. But this time, they picked the wrong family. Because my mother didn't just teach us to stay quiet. She taught us to notice. And now, I was watching everything.
Everyone, please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts.
What's going on?
Just stay calm and follow instructions.
It's okay, sweetie.
The man to rows behind us didn't look away fast enough. That was his mistake. Most people break eye contact quickly on a plane. He didn't. He held it just a second too long, like he was measuring me. I leaned back slowly, pretending to relax. Aisha whispered, "Is it him?" "I don't know yet," I said quietly. "But don't react." Miss Carter walked past him again, offering water like nothing was wrong. Her movements were smooth, natural, but I noticed something different. She adjusted the service phone on the wall twice. A signal. 5 minutes later, two men in plain clothes stood up from opposite ends of the cabin. They didn't look at each other, but they moved at the same time. The man behind us reached into his backpack, and everything inside me went cold. "Sir," one of the plainclothes men said calmly, "keep your hands visible." The passenger froze. Other travelers thought it was just another argument, a small disturbance, but I knew better. The man forced a smile. "What's the problem?" "The problem," the second agent said quietly, "is that you boarded under a name that doesn't exist." Silence. Aisha grabbed my hand so tight it hurt. The man slowly raised his hands. "You're making a mistake." "Not this time," the first agent replied. They pulled the bag gently from his lap. Inside, not a weapon, but multiple access badges, airport staff IDs. Different names, different photos, all fake. The pattern. Mom was right. The entire plane went still. The man's calm expression cracked. "You don't understand who you're interfering with." One of the agents leaned closer and said something so quiet only a few of us heard it. "We've been waiting for you to make a move." Waiting. This wasn't random. They knew. The agents secured him without drama. No shouting. No chaos. Just control. Aisha exhaled shakily. "Was he working with her?" "Yes," I said quietly. "She was the distraction. The small one leads to the big one. But this time, the small one failed. Because she grabbed the wrong blanket." The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Everything is under control." Under control. The words felt heavier now. Miss Carter came back to us slowly. "It's confirmed," she said softly. They were coordinating. My chest felt tight, but not from fear. From clarity. "They were testing the crew again," I said. "Yes," she replied. "But today they walked into a monitored flight." "A monitored flight." I looked at her carefully. "You knew." She nodded once. "After your mom passed." Some of us kept digging. Quietly, we shared information. We tracked patterns. "And today?" I asked. "Today," she said calmly, "was the first time we expected them to escalate." Aisha blinked. "So, this was a trap." Miss Carter didn't smile, but there was pride in her eyes. "They thought they were rehearsing." Pause. "They were actually walking into a net." The agents escorted the man toward the back of the plane. No panic, no screaming, just controlled removal. Passengers were whispering again, but this time it wasn't gossip. It was relief. I opened the laptop again and looked at Mom's final note. "Trust your instincts. The small ones always lead to the big ones." She wasn't just warning us, she was training us. Aisha leaned her head against my shoulder. "Mom knew, didn't she?" "Yes," I said quietly. "She knew it was bigger. And they tried to make it look like an accident." I didn't answer right away. But deep down, I knew. Miss Carter looked at both of us. "There's one more thing," she said gently. My stomach tightened again. "What?" "Your mother wasn't alone." I looked up sharply. She submitted her findings to federal security 2 weeks before she died. They reopened multiple investigations because of her. Aisha wiped her tears. "So she finished what she started?" "Yes," Ms. Carter said firmly, "and today proved she was right." The cabin slowly returned to normal. People started breathing easier. A few even clapped quietly again. But this time, it wasn't for drama. It was for safety. An agent approached us after things settled. "Are you her son?" he asked. I nodded. He studied me carefully. "Your mother was brave." I swallowed. "I know." He handed me a small card. No big logo, no flashy badge. "If you ever feel something doesn't add up," he said calmly, "call that number." Aisha looked up at him. "Is it over?" He gave her a small smile. "For today." "Yes, for today." The plane continued toward our destination like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The woman who tried to steal a blanket wasn't just entitled, she was part of something bigger. And she underestimated one thing: family. When we finally landed, federal officers were waiting at the gate. Passengers exited calmly. No chaos, no headlines, just quiet justice. As we stepped into the terminal, Aisha held the blanket tightly. "It smells like home," she whispered. I smiled softly. Mom always said something that used to sound simple: if you protect what matters, everything else falls into place. Today, we protected more than a blanket. We protected a pattern from continuing. We stopped a rehearsal from becoming a disaster. Miss Carter walked with us toward security. "You did well," she said. I shook my head. "We just noticed." She smiled gently. "That's what your mom did too." We reached the exit doors. Sunlight poured in. Aisha looked at me. "Do you think Mom would be proud?" I looked down at her, at the stitched name in the corner of that blanket. "Fatima, she already is," I said quietly. Behind us, agents moved quickly but calmly through the terminal. No loud arrests, no dramatic scene, just professionals finishing what my mom started. Before we separated, Miss Carter stopped me. "One last thing," she said. I waited. "Your mother once told me something after that incident 3 years ago." "What?" she said. "The loud ones aren't always the strongest. Sometimes they're just testing who will stay silent." I felt that settle deep inside me. "And she wasn't silent," I said. "No," Ms. Carter replied. "And neither were you." As we stepped outside, into the warm air, Aisha squeezed my hand. "Next time someone tries to act like they own everything," she said softly, "what do we do?" I smiled slightly. "We stay calm. Pause. And we watch. Because sometimes the villain isn't just entitled. Sometimes they're rehearsing. And sometimes, all it takes to shut them down is refusing to look away." They tried to steal my sister's blanket, but what they really stole was their own cover. And they picked the wrong flight to test it on.